Hello, friends. I'm DJ Lance Rock, and I have to say, Rock and Roll Grad School is awesome!
This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Take our hands, we're off to Never Never Land.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a real good time. It's sort of like a nice... So we're talking with Eddie Berman today, singer, songwriter. He's from Portland, Oregon. And I think in the interview, I refer to his music as a warm bath, and I think we both would agree with that.
Yes.
And he has a lovely song about the birth of his daughter that is not the typical, I guess, I had a kid song, which is sort of nice.
True.
And his record is coming out next month. What else can we talk about that's depressing about music? Oh, I know. The Shane MacGowan funeral.
I know, but it was so sweet.
It was really nice. So they did Glenn Hansard, and then I didn't realize all those people were remaining members of the Pogues. I knew some of them were, but
Mm-hmm.
And then do you see at the end they did a parting glass, which I don't know how you could get away with any church other than one in Ireland.
Of course.
And the other thing I saw, which I did not realize is a Irish tradition at funerals, is holding up three things or something like that means something to the deceased.
Oh, I like that. I didn't know that either.
So they held up a box of tea that's apparently like the cheapo Irish brand of tea that everybody drinks. And it's, I guess, I get the impression sort of like the Lipton tea of Ireland.
Okay.
And there's a photo of the priest holding this up like it's the Eucharist. And I saw a bunch of captions that were like, this is the most Irish thing ever.
Of course.
And so they're holding that up in a church. And then the next thing they held up was his copy of Led Zeppelin 2.
I mean,
which is lovely.
Right.
So it's...
What was the third?
I believe it was I know Spider's Stacy, the flute player in the Pogues, when they would do, oh God, I'm going to blank on the song now. I think it's Fiesta. He would bang himself on the head with a sheet pan that he was playing. And so he had a very nice silver thing that was to kind of represent the sheet pan that he would always hit himself with.
All right.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you're like, hell of a funeral. I wish it was mine. You know what I mean? Where you're like, that's really, really nice.
Right. Like if you have a funeral.
Give me some time.
Right. Not now, but
not now. Yes.
Something of that ilk would be a good way to be celebrated.
Exactly. And the fact that like, it's just interesting the way Ireland appreciates their artists in a way that I don't think America does very well.
Mm-hmm.
When you have like Jerry Adams there saying how great he was, and like a really nice assortment of people, and for as big a message as he was at times, the full marching band, horse-drawn carriage, and all those.
Yes.
Nice.
That was really nice.
So, let's see what else. I'm trying to think it's sort of we're just getting to the year-end, the best of lists and all of that.
I know.
I don't know if I'm ready for best of lists yet.
I'm not ready either.
Maybe because I don't know what would be on my best of list.
I don't know. I haven't done the whole like these are my books and songs of the year.
I feel like we've been listening to a bunch of new music, but then also a bunch of older stuff for the show, which is lovely. But
yeah,
nobody wants to hear about how much we love that Firefall record from 1972. They might. That's
or
true.
How we rediscovered or how we like discovered the Allman Brothers.
Or the Blues Traveler Soul record, which is a little bit old, a little bit new.
Exactly.
New hat on an old head, something like that.
There's a lot. We've had some good tunes.
Yeah. So
all that is goth we've been listening to.
A lot of goth, and that's going to be a fun
That will be fun. But in fairness, I don't think that's ever off my rotation for very long.
And this is true.
The Cure and the Smiths on it pretty heavily.
Would you say The Cure and
The Smiths.
oh, well,
Pretty
yeah.
heavy rotation.
And I think if they weren't between the goth book and the Killer movie,
Mm-hmm.
you just want to put on The Queen is Dead or
Right.
something like that.
And the Cure
So.
tour and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to talk business on the show, as you well know,
Oh, yes.
but maybe we run our goth interview on Christmas Day.
Oh, that seems appropriate and festive.
Kind of fun and just,
Yeah.
counter programming.
Right. I kind of like it.
It was free of strangers. The world was wild then.
How long have you been putting this together? In these tracks, how long have they been kind of living with you?
Well, I mean, it all came very quickly, and I think that's the way that I tend to do things for the most part. What is I'll always be writing guitar parts and little melodies, and I just I've been doing that kind of my whole musical life, is just have whatever little recorder I've got on me. And now it's the amazing thing with having this phone, where the quality of the recordings it takes down are, I mean, they've always, it's been like weirdly good. So I will spend, months and months just kind of coming up with little parts, but then, I'll go a year sometimes without writing a word. And then all of a sudden it sort of feels like, okay, the urge to do it feels like, okay, I've got it in me. And so I think I wrote these whole, I think all 13 tracks in the span of just, a few weeks, maybe a month or two. And then it was the interesting part about the recording process of it, which is that almost every album I've done, we've recorded totally live. And then my last album that I put out at the beginning of 2022, that one, we were supposed to record it, I think it was like May of 2020, we had it scheduled. And so obviously everything
Famous last words.
shut down. Exactly. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh, we could wait this out, or I thought, I've got a little home studio. Let's just try to piece it together. And so it was the sort of complete antithesis of the way I'd always done it. And all of a sudden I'm building a track. And we never record with a click track or anything. We're just in the room. We capture what we capture, and that's what we get. But there were, so we did it, and I'm proud of the album, and I think there were some cool parts about working that way. And I had sort of thought, I don't know, maybe I'll record like this from now on. It's kind of nice. It's nice I can be a little more deliberate, a little more discerning maybe, and it's nice not to be my whole band and the studio I record with are all down in LA. And so, it was going, I don't know, maybe this is it. And so for this newest album, I'd written it, had the pieces together. I thought, well, let me just get together. I hadn't played with my band at this point in a couple of years. And I thought, well, let's just rehearse it live in person. And then, maybe we'll record it remotely. And then got together with them, and then within 30 seconds of playing, it was like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, what? It was just the veil lifting and going, this is the point of this thing. It's not to sit and be just and going, oh, that drum, maybe we can pull that back. It's that live feeling. And so we recorded the whole thing in about 3 days in a studio down in LA. It's a place called 64 Sound in Highland Park. And that we've recorded basically all of our albums at Pierre de Reeder's studio, who engineers and mixes all of our albums. And it was great. We got down there. It was this crazy rainstorm in LA, which was sort of bizarre, but it felt just great of just getting into the studio with my three bandmates and just kind of cranking them out. And even though we could have done it, I think, in a longer period of time, I liked having that constraint to feel like, not to be too precious about it.
Well, it seems that's like you were saying, that's how you approach the songwriting side of it too, of like, do you sort of just get it all down and worry about what it means later? Is that your approach?
Well, I think
Or are you just like constantly carrying the notes with you and going, well, maybe.
Well, it's sort of both. It's like as I'm coming up with the guitar parts, there's always sort of like a melody that I'm sort of singing with it. And so and I think it's the kind of finger picking style and the open tuning stuff that I do, and that the melody's kind of like baked in to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I go back to listen to it, sometimes it's kind of gibberish I'm singing, and other times it's, full phrases. And there have been just a handful of songs where there've been, it's like, it's almost all there. And there's a bit of a decoding of going back to the gibberish and the words that are coming in. And sometimes it's just a phrase or a word or something. And then it's a very sort of deliberate process of writing those songs. And I like writing them in this kind of truncated period where it feels like they feel cohesive in a way. And even if the songs are about different topics, I think probably where I'm at in my life and whatever is I'm reading and thinking about and listening to, and everything's sort of infused in it in a way. And there's it gives kind of another level, which is something that's kind of one of the reasons why I do I sort of pick a new guitar tuning at times. I'll just sort of get sick of a guitar tuning and I'll move to a new one.
Okay.
And this one I did in what's called Gad, D tuning. And
I was going to ask you, when's your drop D tuning record coming out, but I guess this is it.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that was the first, when I was first learning how to do that finger picking, where, your thumb is kind of playing the bass notes and then your other fingers are playing the melody. It was a drop D. It was a Dave Von Ronk. I think it was a VHS. This is how long ago it was. And it was him playing the song called Green, Green Rocky Road. And so that was a drop D song. And I think coming up, listening to all the, the Dylan and those kind of finger picking folky guys there's a lot of drop D in my first couple records. And then I started playing an open C. And then this one, I just like the process of, it's like relearning the guitar, and you just find all these weird voicings and sounds and ways that I think it's, instead of, sticking with one tuning and getting very good at it, I get sort of serviceable at each one and then move on.
Makes sense. And let's just note down second reference of learning from Dave Van Ronk on this show in the past 4 months.
Oh, nice.
We interviewed, is it Steve Levy from, I'm blanking on the guy's name, which is so nasty, from Blood, Sweat and Tears.
It's Steve.
Van Ronk was his guitar teacher as a teenager, which seems like that's amazing. The most insane, like, what? He's just going and hanging out at his place. So that's so interesting. I mean, the idea of approaching these things. So do you really, I mean, as you're writing down lyrics, as you're working with this stuff, how you must often find yourself kind of going like, oh, so that's what this means. Or I have a theme going, and then I got the 3 things, I know what those mean, and the 4th just fits, and that's what I'm talking about.
Completely. That there is a bit of a decoding thing. I always love that sort of the metaphor of it being like sculpture. I mean, that you're kind of chipping away at this thing and it's kind of revealing itself. And which is, there's a song on this album that's called First of Spring. And then in parentheses, Kira's song that I wrote for my daughter. And I have 2 daughters, and my first one I named an album after. Her name's Bridget, and the album's called Before the Bridge. And there's a bunch of songs about her, and the whole album was about kind of being on the precipice of becoming a father and all the anxiety and excitement and psychic insanity that is going on with all that. And so I knew, I was like, I need to write. I wrote another song about her birth that was this, this sort of, that crazy moment of becoming a father. And so I knew I had to write something for my next kid.
Oh yeah.
And
that's going to be a problem.
And I was like, it is. I'm going to be paying for this later on. And but and so I would find myself forcing it, of going, okay, let me, but I don't, it's sort of like you were talking about, I don't ever start with a song saying, I'm going to write about this thing. It is sort of starts to reveal itself in that way of starting from the words and the sounds, and just a phrase comes, and you know, it's very sort of image based kind of writing. And so there was I was writing a song. I had this strumming guitar part I was playing, and there was just, I think, a little chorus or something that it was just certain parts were coming together, and I realized, like, oh, I'm writing about Kira's birth. That was this insane, you know, experience of she it was a planned C-section. And everything was great, and the doctors were great, and she comes out, and they bring me over to the little table where they bring her out, and you know, you're just vibrating on this crazy frequency, and they take this big like rod and stick it down her throat, and I go, what, well, you know, what's going on? And they just say, okay, Dad, come with us. And so we go out and we go into this other room, and I realize that she's sort of hyperventilating. She's just breathing like kind of. And so they put her on this table, and, you know, my wife has got sort of no idea. She's getting sewn up in the delivery room, and they put her on this little table, and I'm 6'3", my wife's 5'10", but we make these little peanut babies when they're born. So she's there, and she's like the size of a squirrel on this little table, and they put this CPAP machine on her, because I think her lungs are all clogged up, and the CPAP machine is like the size of her whole head. And they just turn it on, and there's a little digital clock, and they say, we're going to do this for 20 minutes, and it's counting up, and it was just endless. And she just is still hyperventilating, and I'm trying to, you know, and all the nurses and the doctors, they're just saints. But these nurses are like the no bullshit, like triage. We're dealing with this, and it's like, we don't have time to talk to you.
Right.
So I'm just there, and I'm talking to Kira, and I'm rubbing her foot, and I'm just singing to her like I did in the, you know, when she was in utero, and it just kept going, and she wouldn't, you know, she's just hyperventilating. I'm trying to get a sense from them of like, what's going to happen or what's going on. And they say, look, she's going to go to intensive care, and you probably won't be able to see her for a couple days at least. And I remember just thinking, like, that this is my one job is like, get this baby back to her mother, like just get this baby back to her mother. And my heart sank, and I was like, I can't believe I'm going to have to go in empty-handed to my wife in this moment. And she's just, and this clock is counting up, and the nurse just goes, okay, Carol, get a bed ready in room 2. And it's getting up to 18 minutes and 19, and it gets to 20 minutes, and she's still just hyperventilating. And she's going to switch the CPAP machine off, and just as she's going to do it, all of a sudden Kira just and we all just stop, and she takes 2 or 3 more deep breaths, and then she just radios, and she goes, all right, Carol, it's just me coming in, and then hands me Kira, and I'm just a shaking mess, and I go into
you're
my wife.
Hyperventilating, right?
Exactly. And so I go into my wife, who's just, you know, given birth and is getting sewn back up, and she's doing 1,000 times better than I'm doing in this moment. And I go, and I put Kira on her chest, and she's just going, hey, how'd it go? And I was like, I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of sitting there in a mess. And so it was this funny moment of like, it didn't even, I think it took me time to process all of it, or to think. And so as I was writing this song, I sort of realized, oh, this is what this is about, and finding that sort of that through line of the experience of it, and then that kind of what the sort of reverberations of that thing are for me and for her, and just, you know, all of it moving forward. So it was those songwriting moments of being like, just waiting for the right, you know, it's kind of like the whole process of waiting for that inspiration to hit, of just even just the feeling of, okay, I feel like I can write right now. You know, I know there's songwriters that have that sensibility of, it's like, you know, putting on a suit, and I sit down and I write from 10 to for, and that's what I do. And whether something comes or doesn't come, I'm there. And I feel like I never wrote anything good when I tried to force it. So it felt that sort of, that like Japanese Zen Wu way of like, it's like the difference between using a sail and, using some oars. It's like, let it all, the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I don't know. But then you're like reliving. See, that's one of the things that fascinates me. Like you're reliving these traumatic moments to bring them to art, which I know can, I guess some people feel it's therapeutic or what have you, but I just wouldn't want to go back there. So I have such respect for anyone who can do it.
Well, thank you. But it was, I think because it all turned out so well, and that it was, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I know people that have had their kids in intensive care for weeks. This was 20 minutes. I mean, probably 30 from start to finish of this whole thing. But that what it was, and I think what the song, how it ends, or what the sort of realization was at the end of it, was that such unbelievable appreciation and love and excitement that you have for this life that you got to have, that just seeing that fragility right at the start, that then, the sort of ripple effect of that for the rest of her life is just remembering that, and just seeing her run around and seeing her take those big deep breaths as she's, as she's living her life is, it's the most beautiful stuff, and I think that's the thing about this album, is that it, I think the last couple albums were a little more, a little headier, a little more, philosophical, or just getting, maybe a little darker in places. And this one, I think, kind of like when the fog sort of lifted when I was playing with my band, that I think that's what this sort of whole album was about. I realized afterwards that it was a bit of that veil lifting, and just seeing the kind of a lot of the beauty and the love and all of these things around me. And so that was it's a lot of songs, songs for my wife and songs for my kids, and it's still blended with, some of the I think themes from the last couple albums, that kind of everything always bleeds into the next projects and everything.
Well, it's interesting to say that you even considered for a second not recording in the same room with the band, because I feel like these records have such a euphemistically, this is all wrong, but like sort of a warm bath quality, where you're just like, oh, okay, like here we are, we're going to talk about some stuff, might be heavy, might not be, but like we're all in a safe space together. And like that energy and that synergy of what you and the band are able to create in the room in that moment, like you said, not using click tracks, just like we're all going on this journey together, and you are hearing a document of that moment.
Completely. And I think there's the other side of the warm bath, which is like the warm bath of the isolation that we were all kind of going through in our different ways, where there's a part of you that's like, oh, maybe I can live my life like this, I'll homeschool my kids and have my groceries dropped off at my front door and never, never go do anything anymore. And but you're totally right. It was that getting in that moment. And I've just always loved, I think it's also this kind of music is not meant to be precise, and it's not meant to be I think even too rehearsed. That the first track on the album, which was the single we just put out, that's called Rolling Over Me, was one where we were working with this new drummer who I'd never played with before, named Chris Wabish, who's fantastic, and we just did a couple rehearsals. And the way that the scheduling all worked out, and us living, in different cities, and having this kind of tight window, and we recorded our rehearsals, and they were every one that we worked on with him was sounding great except for that one. And I was going into the studio, we were driving into the studio, and I was listening on my way in to our little demos that we made during our rehearsals, and that one was just sounding like easy, like Sunday morning. It was just like this. I was like, this really, really does not work. And I think it was what we tried at the end of the day. And we were just a little lost and didn't really know where to go with it. Chris just said, okay, I've got a weird sort of drum idea for it. And someone said, should we rehearse it? And I said, no, let's just go. Let's just do it. Just Chris, you start and we'll just see where this goes. And he started it. It was kind of a totally different vibe to what we were doing. And then we did, I think, 2 takes, and that was it. And that was the song. And it was totally, and it was us all sort of exploring, not knowing at all what we were going to do in that moment. And we knew sort of the vague structure of the song, and, you know, and I knew the words and where it was sort of going. And, but it was that feeling that you're trying to capture of the immediacy, the excitement of all just being in this thing together, and it's just materializing.
Yeah. And it must make all your past records feel like scrapbooks of certain times and certain moments of
completely. Yeah.
Like, I mean, lyrically, musically, all of it is just this document of your career and your experiences. What is it about this band that keeps drawing you all back together? Because like you said, everyone's in different places and you've got to recall the troops, as it were. Anyone else would be like, there's easier ways. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I've been playing now with they're called the Gabes, with Gabe Feenberg and Gabe Davis for, I mean, over a decade now, I think. And
where'd you get the name from?
Yeah, exactly. I know we were looking for a drummer, and we were gonna put in only Gabe's Gabe's need apply. Which Eddie and the Gabes.
Our Gabe quota.
Yeah, exactly. And but they actually go back because they used to live in the same apartment building in Los Feliz, and one lived on the bottom floor and the top floor. So they're really just called upstairs and downstairs are what the names of the 2 Gabes are. And I mean, it's the trust and the you know, just the talent of these guys. I mean, it's like my skill set, I think, is like I have my kind of narrow abilities in this thing of I've got my, you know, I write the songs and the way that I do them, but Gabe Feenberg, who is this, you know, can just kind of play everything. He's this amazing piano player and guitar player, lap steel, accordion. He studied the trombone at the Berklee School of Music, and he just picks something up and is incredible at it. So having that versatility and his sensibility that is so great. And then Gabe Davis, who's this upright player, also plays the electric, beautiful, you know, bowed pieces. And there's it's the trust, you know. I feel it's like having actors or something that you just know. I'm giving you a kind of vague structure, and all have input, and I have an idea in my head of what I think it should sound like, but I don't say that. I don't tell them any of that. I just want to see what they're going to bring to it. And, you know, for all of these albums, they've brought their own flavor and their own thing that I could never kind of come up with. And I love that continuity as it continues and as it fits. And we've brought different people in to play drums at times, and we've had other people play a couple of other instruments, and but there is, you know, I feel like there's more to explore. So I keep coming back to the well.
Signifier, the new album from Eddie Berman, is available January 19th. For more information, check out his website, eddiebermanmusic.com.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website at rockandrollgradschool.com, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.
Those silent sisters came to see, and they cast their scornful eyes at me. But I sung my song to your deaf ear. I knew somehow that you could hear, and I won't worry. worry, I won't worry. I won't worry about what's coming, 'cause it's coming for the both of us. And I won't hurry, I won't hurry. 'Cause the only shot we got is to let it crash over us. And I stood my watch with faithfulness. Oh, you fallow fields and shallow breaths. The air is thin and the time is due.